On my 50th birthday, my husband brought his mistress into my house. He looked at me and said, "This is your gift. The truth."
You know what I did?
I laughed. I laughed right in his face. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching this story from? Leave a heart if you believe that sometimes life gives us the biggest surprises exactly when we least expect them. But let me start from the beginning. My name is Olivia Carter, and I'm 49 years old. I live in Houston, Texas, where the heat can be unbearable. But somehow, I've always found ways to make life beautiful. For the past 25 years, I've dedicated everything to my family. My husband James, my daughter Emma, who's 23, and my son Ethan, who just turned 21. They were my world, my reason for waking up every morning with a smile. But this year was different. This year, I was turning 50, and for the first time in decades, I wanted to celebrate myself. I know it sounds selfish, but I felt like I deserved it. All those years of putting everyone else first, of making sure dinners were ready, birthdays were perfect, Christmas mornings were magical. It was my turn. "Mom, we should totally throw you the biggest party ever," Emma said one evening as we sat in the kitchen. She was always the enthusiastic one, my Emma. "You deserve it after everything you've done for us." Ethan nodded, looking up from his phone.
Yeah, Mom.
"Let's make it epic. You only turn 50 once." My heart swelled with happiness. Having my kids support this dream meant everything to me. We started planning immediately. I had always been a planner, but this felt different. This felt like hope. We spent weeks looking at venues. I wanted something elegant but not too fancy, somewhere all my friends could come and feel comfortable. We finally found this beautiful event hall downtown with crystal chandeliers and large windows that let in the most gorgeous natural light. "This is perfect, Mom," Emma said, spinning around in the empty space. "You're going to look like a queen in here." I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. "A 50-year-old queen. The best kind," Ethan added with a grin. The planning consumed me in the best way possible. We picked out flowers, white roses mixed with soft pink peonies. I spent hours looking for the perfect dress, something that would make me feel beautiful and confident. I found this stunning navy blue number that hugged my curves just right. Every detail mattered. The guest list grew to about 80 people, family, friends from work, neighbors we'd known for years, some of James's colleagues. I was so excited to see everyone, to celebrate this milestone surrounded by love. But as the weeks went by, I noticed James becoming more distant. He'd come home later than usual, always with some excuse about work meetings or drinks with his boss. When I'd show him pictures of decorations or tell him about the catering menu, he'd just nod and grunt responses. "Honey, I need to talk to you about the budget," I said one evening. We were sitting in our living room, and I had all my planning notebooks spread out on the coffee table. "The venue, catering, flowers, it's adding up. I was hoping you could help with some of the costs." James barely looked up from his laptop. "How much are we talking?" "About $3,000. "I know it's a lot, but this is important to me, James. It's my 50th birthday." He was quiet for a long moment, his fingers still typing. Then he stopped and looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. "I can't help you with the money right now, Olivia," he said flatly. "But don't worry. I'm going to give you a very special present." Something in his tone made my stomach flutter with unease, but I pushed the feeling away. "What kind of present?" He smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was almost cold. "You'll see. Trust me, it's something you'll never forget." I should have known then. I should have listened to that voice in my head that was screaming warnings. But I was so focused on my party, so excited about finally having something just for me, that I ignored every red flag. The next few weeks were a blur of final preparations. Emma and Ethan helped me with everything James wouldn't. They pitched in money from their part-time jobs, they helped set up decorations, they even convinced some of their friends to help serve at the party. But something else started bothering me. James's clothes began smelling different. Not just his usual cologne, but something else. Something sweet and cheap. A perfume that definitely wasn't mine. The first time I noticed it, I was doing laundry. I picked up one of his work shirts, and there it was, this overwhelming scent of vanilla and something artificial. It hit me like a punch to the gut. James, I called out as he walked past the laundry room. Your shirt smells like perfume. He stopped and turned around, but his expression was completely unbothered. Must be from someone at the office. You know how women wear too much of that stuff. His explanation was so casual, so dismissive, that I almost believed him. Almost. But then it happened again. And again. Different shirts, same sickly sweet smell. And each time I brought it up, James had the same nonchalant response. Someone at work. A client meeting. The elevator was crowded. I started paying more attention. The late nights became more frequent. His phone was always face down now, and he'd take it with him even to the bathroom. When I'd ask about his day, his answers became shorter, vaguer. How was your meeting with the Peterson account? I'd ask. Fine, he'd answer, not looking up from his phone. Did you close the deal? We're still working on it. That was it. No details, no stories like he used to tell. It was like talking to a stranger. 2 weeks before my party, I was making dinner when James came home. The perfume smell was stronger than ever. I turned around from the stove and looked at him. James, we need to talk.
About what?
He was already heading toward the stairs. About whatever's going on with you. About this perfume. About how you've been acting. He stopped at the bottom of the staircase and turned to face me. For a moment, I thought I saw guilt flash across his face. But then it was gone, replaced by that same cold indifference. You're being paranoid, Olivia. Maybe if you focus less on this ridiculous party and more on reality, you'd see things clearly. His words stung more than the perfume ever could. Ridiculous party? This was my dream, my one celebration after decades of putting everyone else first. This party means everything to me, I said quietly. Yeah, I can see that, he replied, and there was something cruel in his voice. Don't worry. You'll get your big moment soon enough. As he walked upstairs, I stood in the kitchen feeling more alone than I had in years. But I pushed the feelings down. I had a party to plan, a milestone to celebrate. Whatever was happening with James, I'd deal with it after my birthday. I had no idea that my birthday would be the day everything exploded. I had no idea that James was about to give me that special present he'd promised. And I definitely had no idea that by the end of that day, my entire life would be turned upside down. But sometimes, when everything falls apart, that's exactly when you discover who you really are. The morning of my 50th birthday started like any other day, except my heart was racing with excitement. After months of planning, the day was finally here. I woke up early, around 6:30, and James was already gone. He'd left a note on his pillow saying he had an early meeting but would be back to help me get ready. I should have known something was wrong when I found myself relieved that he wasn't there. Emma called me around 8. Happy birthday, Mom. How does it feel to be 50? Like I'm finally ready to celebrate myself, I said, and I meant it. Despite everything that had been happening with James, I was determined not to let anything ruin this day. Ethan and I will be over around noon to help you with your hair and makeup. We hired that woman from the salon you like. You didn't have to do that, sweetheart. Yes, we did.
Today is all about you, Mom.
You deserve to feel like a queen. I spent the morning getting the house ready. Even though the party was at the venue, I wanted everything to be perfect when my kids arrived. I cleaned, I organized, I even put fresh flowers in every room. It felt good to stay busy, to keep my mind off James and his strange behavior. Around 10, I was in the kitchen making coffee when my phone rang. It was my sister Sarah calling from California. Happy birthday, big sister. 50 looks good on you already. Thank you, honey. I wish you could be here.
Me too.
But I want you to promise me something, Olivia. Promise me you'll enjoy every single moment today. You've earned this. Her words hit me harder than I expected. For some reason, I started crying. Olivia, what's wrong? Nothing, I said, wiping my eyes. I'm just emotional. It's a big day. Is James treating you right? Making this day special for you? I hesitated. Sarah had always been able to read me, even over the phone. He's been distant lately, but I'm sure he's just stressed with work. Olivia, you don't have to make excuses for him. Not to me. I know, but today is my day, and I'm not going to let anything ruin it. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen and made a decision. Whatever was happening with James, whatever that perfume meant, whatever was making him act so cold, I would deal with it tomorrow. Today was mine. Emma and Ethan arrived right on time with a hairstylist. My kids looked so excited, so proud to be part of making my day special. Emma had even brought a bottle of champagne. For pre-party celebration, she announced, popping the cork. It's not even noon, I laughed. It's your 50th birthday, Mom. The rules don't apply today, Ethan said, grabbing glasses from the cabinet. The hairstylist, Maria, was wonderful. She curled my hair into these soft waves that made me look younger, more vibrant. Emma did my makeup, taking her time with each brush stroke. You look absolutely gorgeous, Mom, she said, stepping back to admire her work. I looked in the mirror and gasped. I looked like myself, but somehow better. More confident. More alive. Thank you both, I said, feeling tears threatening to ruin my makeup. This means everything to me. Don't cry yet, Ethan joked. Save the tears for when you see your dress on. We were laughing and talking when I heard James's car in the driveway. It was almost noon. Dad's back, Emma said, looking toward the window. Maybe he brought you flowers or something. I felt that familiar knot in my stomach, but I pushed it away. He said he had a surprise for me. The front door opened, and I heard James's footsteps in the hallway. But there was something different. It sounded like more than one person walking. James? I called out. We're in the living room. I know. His voice came back, but it sounded strange. Distant. Then he appeared in the doorway. And he wasn't alone. Standing next to him was a woman I'd never seen before. She was young, maybe early 30s, with long blonde hair and too much makeup. She was wearing a tight red dress and holding James's hand. The room went completely silent. Maria stopped mid-sentence about hair products. Emma's champagne glass froze halfway to her mouth. Ethan's jaw dropped. I stared at them, my brain trying to process what I was seeing. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. Not today. Not on my birthday. Not in my house. James? My voice came out as barely a whisper. He looked at me with this cold expression I'd never seen before. No guilt, no shame, no apology. Just coldness. Olivia, this is Madison, he said, as casual as if he was introducing a coworker. I told you I had a special present for you. This is it. The truth. This is what you deserve to know. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I felt like I was falling, but I was still standing. The sweet perfume I'd been smelling for weeks was overwhelming now, filling my living room, contaminating my space. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. Then something inside me shifted. Maybe it was the champagne, maybe it was the shock, or maybe it was just 25 years of suppressed feelings finally breaking free. But instead of crying, instead of screaming, I started laughing. I laughed long and hard, throwing my head back like I'd just heard the funniest joke in the world. You think you destroyed me, James? I said between laughs. You think this is some devastating revelation? His confident expression started to falter. I already knew. I continued, my voice getting stronger. Every cheap perfume, every pathetic excuse, every late night. I knew. I was just waiting for you to dig your grave deep enough. Madison looked uncomfortable now, shifting from foot to foot in her ridiculous heels. The only surprise here, I said, looking directly at her, is that he actually had the balls to bring you into my house. On my birthday. That's when Emma found her voice. You brought her here? She screamed, her face red with fury. To Mom's house. On her birthday? Ethan stood up, so fast his chair fell backward. You're garbage, Dad, he said, his voice shaking with rage. Absolute garbage. James tried to speak, but Emma cut him off. How could you do this to her? How could you do this to us? Madison tugged on James's arm. Maybe we should go, she whispered. Yeah, I said, standing up and smoothing down my robe. You should definitely go. Both of you. I walked over to the front door and opened it wide. Take your midlife crisis and get out of my house. Madison hurried toward the door, but James hesitated. Olivia, I dash. No. I cut him off. You don't get to explain. You don't get to make this about your feelings or your needs. You made your choice. Now live with it. He stood there for another moment, maybe expecting me to beg or cry or fall apart. When I didn't, when I just stood there holding the door open with my head held high, he finally left. I closed the door behind them and turned to face my children. Emma was crying, Ethan was pacing, and Maria was pretending to organize her hair supplies. Mom, Emma said, I'm so sorry. We can cancel the party. We can dash. Cancel the party? I interrupted. Are you kidding me? I looked at my beautiful children, at my gorgeous hair and makeup, at the champagne still sitting on the coffee table. We have a party to go to, I said firmly. And I have 50 years to celebrate. But Mom dash Ethan started.
No buts.
Your father just gave me the greatest gift he could possibly give me. He gave me freedom. He gave me permission to stop pretending our marriage was something it wasn't. And he did it on the perfect day, the day I'm celebrating becoming the woman I was always meant to be. I picked up my champagne glass and raised it.
To truth.
To freedom. And to the best birthday party of my life. Emma and Ethan looked at each other, then at me, and slowly started to smile. To Mom, Emma said, raising her glass. To the strongest woman we know, Ethan added. As we clinked glasses, I realized something. For the first time in years, I felt completely, authentically happy. James thought he was destroying me, but all he'd done was set me free. 3 hours later, I was standing in front of my bedroom mirror, putting on that navy blue dress I'd spent so much time choosing. My hands were steady as I zipped it up, fastened my pearl necklace, and slipped on my heels. I looked like a woman who was ready to celebrate, not like someone whose world had just imploded. Emma knocked on my door. Mom, you ready? Come in, sweetheart. She walked in and stopped dead in her tracks. Mom, you look incredible. I feel incredible, I said, and I meant it. How are you holding up? Emma sat on the edge of my bed. I keep wanting to cry, but then I look at you and think, if Mom can do this, so can I.
Good.
Because we're about to walk into that party with our heads held high. People are going to ask where your father is, and we're going to tell them the truth. He chose not to be here. What if people feel sorry for us? I turned to face her fully. Emma, the only person anyone should feel sorry for tonight is your father. He's the one who threw away 25 years for what? A woman young enough to be his daughter? He's the one who's going to wake up tomorrow and realize what he's lost. Ethan appeared in the doorway. The car's here, ladies. As we rode to the venue, I felt this strange sense of calm. Maybe it was shock, maybe it was relief, but I felt lighter than I had in months. No more pretending everything was fine. No more making excuses for James's behavior. No more walking on eggshells in my own life. When we pulled up to the event hall, I could see the warm glow of lights through the windows. People were already arriving, and I could hear laughter and music drifting out into the evening air. You sure you're ready for this, Mom? Ethan asked. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. The moment I walked through those doors, I was surrounded by love. My friends, my family, my coworkers, they all rushed over to hug me and wish me happy birthday. The decorations looked even more beautiful than I'd imagined, and the flowers filled the room with the most gorgeous scent. Olivia, my friend Janet called out. You look absolutely stunning. Where's James? Here it was. The first test. James won't be joining us tonight, I said simply. But I'm here, and that's what matters. Janet looked confused for a moment, but before she could ask more questions, my cousin Michael appeared with a glass of wine. Happy birthday, gorgeous. This party is amazing. And just like that, I was swept into the celebration. People kept commenting on how radiant I looked, how happy I seemed, how this was the best party they'd ever been to. The DJ was playing all my favorite songs, the food was perfect, and everywhere I looked, I saw smiling faces. About an hour into the party, my friend Lisa pulled me aside. Okay, spill. You look like a woman who just won the lottery. What's going on? I took a sip of my wine and smiled. James brought his girlfriend to the house today. Told me it was my birthday present.
Lisa's jaw dropped.
He what? You heard me right. Walked her right into my living room while I was getting ready for this party. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Do you want to talk about it? We can go somewhere quiet dash. Lisa, I interrupted, do I look like a woman who needs to talk through her feelings right now? She looked at me carefully, my perfect hair, my glowing skin, my confident smile. No, she said slowly. You look like a woman who just got set free. Exactly. Now come dance with me. The night continued like a dream. I danced with my children, with my friends, with my brother who'd flown in from Denver. I gave a speech thanking everyone for being part of my life, and when I mentioned that this was the beginning of a new chapter, the applause was thunderous. People kept asking about James, and each time I gave them the same simple answer. He chose not to be here tonight. I didn't elaborate, didn't make excuses, didn't try to save his reputation. If they wanted details, they could figure it out themselves. Around 10 o'clock, as the party was winding down, my phone started buzzing with text messages. The first one was from James. We need to talk. This was a mistake. I showed the message to Emma and Ethan. Don't answer him, Emma said immediately. I'm not planning to, I replied, deleting the message. Then another one came through. Olivia, please. I can explain everything.
Delete.
I know you're angry, but we can work through this. Delete. This doesn't have to end our marriage. I actually laughed out loud at that one before deleting it. By the time we got home around midnight, James had sent 17 messages. I didn't read a single one after the fourth. Instead, I kicked off my heels, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat in my living room still wearing my beautiful dress. Mom, Ethan said, sitting down next to me. Are you really okay? Because if you need to cry or scream or throw things, we're here for you. I looked at my son, this wonderful young man I'd raised, and felt nothing but gratitude. You know what, sweetheart? I think I've been holding my breath for years, and today, I finally exhaled. Yes, I'm sad that my marriage is over. But I'm not sad that my fake marriage is over. Fake marriage? Emma asked, curling up on the other side of me. The marriage where I pretended not to notice the distance. Where I made excuses for his behavior. Where I convinced myself that this was just how marriages looked after 25 years. That wasn't real. That was me settling for crumbs when I deserved the whole cake.
My phone buzzed again.
Another message from James. This time I did read it. Madison means nothing to me. You're my wife.
Come home so we can talk.
I showed it to the kids. Come home, Emma said incredulously. He's acting like you left him. In his mind, I probably did, I said. The minute I didn't fall apart, the minute I didn't beg him to stay, I stopped playing the role he wanted me to play. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street. Somewhere out there, James was probably realizing that his grand gesture hadn't gone the way he'd planned. He'd expected tears, drama, maybe even a fight for his affections. Instead, he'd gotten laughter and indifference. I'm filing for divorce on Monday, I announced. Emma and Ethan exchanged a look. Are you sure, Mom? Ethan asked gently. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. What he did today wasn't just cheating. It was cruel. It was calculated. He wanted to hurt me, and he wanted to do it in the most painful way possible. That's not love. That's not even basic human decency. I turned back to face my children. And you know what the funny thing is? He thought he was punishing me, but all he did was show me exactly who he really is. And now I'm free to show the world exactly who I really am. My phone rang. James calling. I looked at the screen for a moment, then handed the phone to Emma. Turn it off, sweetheart. Tomorrow is the first day of my new life, and I'm not starting it by listening to his excuses. As Emma powered down my phone, I felt this incredible sense of peace wash over me. For the first time in years, I was exactly where I was supposed to be, doing exactly what I was supposed to do. So what happens now? Emma asked. I smiled, thinking about all the possibilities stretching out in front of me. Now? Now I get to find out who Olivia Carter really is when she's not trying to hold a marriage together. And I have a feeling she's going to be amazing. The clock on the wall chimed once, marking the official end of my 50th birthday. As the sound faded, I realized that James had been right about one thing. This day had been unforgettable, just not in the way he'd intended. Monday morning came faster than I expected. I woke up early, made myself a strong cup of coffee, and called the best divorce attorney in Houston. Her name was Rebecca Martinez, and she had a reputation for not taking any nonsense. Mrs. Carter, she said after I explained my situation, I have to ask, are you sure you want to proceed this quickly? Sometimes people reconcile after affairs. Ms. Martinez, my husband brought his mistress to my house on my 50th birthday and told me it was my present. I'm not reconciling with that level of cruelty. There was a pause. Well then, let's make sure you get everything you're entitled to. While I was at the lawyer's office, James was apparently having his own revelations. According to Emma, who still worked part-time at the coffee shop near his office, he'd been calling her and Ethan nonstop. He keeps saying it was a mistake. Emma told me that evening that he was trying to get your attention, that he wanted you to fight for him. Fight for him? I laughed. After what he did, he's delusional. He also said Madison broke up with him. That stopped me cold. Already. Apparently, once she realized he was serious about leaving you, she lost interest. Turns out she only wanted him because he was married. The forbidden fruit thing. I sat down heavily on my couch. As much as I hated James right now, I felt a tiny spark of satisfaction knowing that his great love affair had lasted exactly 3 days after going public. Emma, I need you and your brother to understand something. Your father is going to try to use you to get to me. He's going to tell you how sorry he is, how much he loves me, how this was all a big misunderstanding. Don't let him manipulate you. Mom, we're not 5 years old. We saw what he did. We know exactly who he is. And she was right. Over the next few weeks, as the divorce proceedings began, James tried everything. He sent flowers to my office. I gave them to my assistant. He showed up at Emma's apartment. She told him to leave. He even tried to ambush me at the grocery store. Olivia, please, he said, cornering me by the cereal aisle.
We need to talk.
I made a mistake. A mistake? I said, not even looking at him as I continued shopping. A mistake is buying the wrong milk. What you did was a choice. A series of choices. I was going through something. A midlife crisis, maybe. I wasn't thinking clearly. I stopped walking and turned to face him. James, do you know what I was going through? 25 years of marriage to a man who apparently saw me as so disposable that he could parade his girlfriend in front of me for sport. It wasn't like that, Dash. It was exactly like that. You didn't just cheat, James. You orchestrated a moment designed to humiliate me. On my birthday. In my house. In front of my children. Other shoppers were starting to stare, but I didn't care. And you know what the really pathetic part is?
You thought it would break me.
You thought I'd fall apart and beg you to choose me over her. Instead, you just showed me how little you actually knew about the woman you married. I pushed my cart past him and walked away. He didn't follow. The divorce moved quickly. Rebecca was as good as her reputation suggested, and it helped that James was clearly in the wrong. The house, the savings account, half his pension, I got everything I was entitled to, and then some. But the real changes weren't financial. They were personal. 3 months after my birthday, I ran into my old friend Carol at the mall. We'd lost touch years ago when James decided he didn't like her husband. Olivia? Oh my God, you look amazing. Are you doing something different?
I thought about it. You could say that.
I got divorced. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. And I meant it. Without James's constant negativity, without having to tiptoe around his moods and ego, I felt like myself again. I started taking art classes, something I'd always wanted to do, but James said was a waste of money. I reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with. I even started dating, though nothing serious yet. The kids adapted better than I'd expected. Emma told me later that she'd been worried about James and me for years. You guys never seemed happy together, Mom. You were always trying so hard to make him happy, and he was always finding reasons to be miserable. Ethan was more direct. Dad's an idiot. He had the best woman in the world and threw her away for some cheap thrill. About 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Emma called me with interesting news. Mom, you'll never guess who I saw at the mall today.
Who? Dad.
He was by himself, looking terrible, like he hadn't shaved in days. And he asked about you. What did he say? He wanted to know if you were dating anyone, if you seemed happy, if you ever talked about him. I told him you were glowing, that you seemed happier than you'd been in years, and that no, you never mentioned him. How did he take that? He looked like someone had punched him in the stomach. I felt a complicated mix of emotions hearing that. Not satisfaction, exactly, but maybe closure. James had gotten exactly what he'd asked for when he chose Madison over our marriage. The problem was, he'd thought he was getting something different. The truth was, James hadn't loved Madison. He'd loved the idea of Madison. Young, uncomplicated, impressed by his attention. He'd loved the thrill of sneaking around, of having something that was just his. But most of all, he'd loved the power he felt in deceiving me. Once Madison realized he was actually available, once there was no more sneaking around, once I was out of the picture entirely, the game was over. And without the game, there was nothing left. A year later, I heard through mutual friends that James had moved to another state. He'd taken early retirement and left Houston entirely. Nobody seemed to know why, but I suspected I did. This city was full of memories of what he'd lost, full of people who knew what he'd done. Meanwhile, I was thriving. My art classes led to a part-time job at a local gallery. I'd lost 15 pounds without even trying. Apparently, happiness is the best diet. I'd traveled to places James never wanted to go. I'd reconnected with parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. On my 51st birthday, Emma and Ethan threw me another party. Smaller this time, just close friends and family, but the joy was even bigger. As I looked around the room at all the people who truly loved and supported me, I realized something profound. James had thought he was giving me the truth as a cruel gift. But the real truth was this. I was better off without him. I was stronger, happier, and more authentically myself than I'd been in decades. The woman who'd laughed in his face that day wasn't the woman he'd expected to break. She was the woman he'd never bothered to get to know. She was the woman who'd been there all along, just waiting for permission to shine. And now she was free to shine as brightly as she wanted. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing. Sometimes when someone tries to destroy you, they accidentally set you free. And sometimes the person who thinks they're giving you a devastating truth is actually giving you the greatest gift of all, the chance to discover who you really are when you stop trying to be who they wanted you to be. That's the real truth James gave me on my 50th birthday. Not the truth about his affair, but the truth about my own strength. And for that, despite everything, I suppose I should thank him. But I won't. Because some gifts are better left unacknowledged, and some people are better left in the past where they belong.